Alright, what's up guys? I always have to give it a few seconds to make sure that it's actually recording. It's like that first 4 or 5 seconds is just buffering. It tricks me. It says we're live, but we're not live. But we are live. My name is Yogizilla. You can call me Yogi or Yomar, whichever you prefer. And I'm doing another GeekyAntics vlog. This is a gang minute. And basically, if you're new, this is where we just talk about all the things that have been going on in our community, discussions we've had, debates we've had, projects going on, and it's also a squawk box for me. I'm not gonna lie. So I try to keep these as concise as possible, but the last few ones I've done have been about an hour long or so. So we're gonna try to shoot for 30, 45 minutes. So let's jump right in on today's jam-packed vlog. And today is August 29th, 2016, almost the end of the month. Fall is almost here. Cooler weather. Can't wait. We'll talk about ReElise Kickstarter, which we've talked about before, and we're very passionate about this project, and I'm going to explain why I think it's so important, and just really be as transparent as possible, because there's some interesting things going on there. As part of the conversation, we're going to talk about Christianity and video games, and I'll let you know right off the bat, I'm not looking to be negative about it, but I am going to speak from the heart, speak about some concerns that I have, and things that I've noticed, and other people that I've spoken to in the Christian community have noticed. Because GeekyAntics, we're a come as you are community, a come as you are network. We have people from all walks of life, but a lot of us are Christians, and we're seeing some opportunities there. So we'll discuss that. We're gonna talk a little more about fundraising. Maybe not too much about that. We are fundraising for our network. Actually, we probably might just skip that because I don't want to take away from the fact that we're trying to help out this Kickstarter. But we'll talk. There is fundraising that's ongoing because what we do. We get people work for their different consulting gigs, creative talents, whatever their services are. And since we work with a lot of small brands, people really usually can't afford to pay us what our normal rates. So fundraising for the network allows us to provide incentives, keep up with our overhead and stuff like that, to kind of close that gap, because it costs time and money to keep something like this big, going, and that's just the way it is. I wish labors of love weren't like that, but everything costs money, especially if you start expanding, and it's a good problem to have, but it's also it's challenging. We're gonna do our gang spotlight, our GeekyAntics spotlight. We're talking about Gaming Death Podcast and Villain Lily. Then we'll have GeekyAntics 101. We're going to revisit the acronym FFFO. We'll see what that means in a little bit. It's not FIFO. It's not typo, I swear. Then we'll have some fantasy football talk, and then we'll wrap up with some closing thoughts, a little bit of gaming stuff, talking about Titanfall 2, and some current trends at Hearthstone. So let's jump ahead here. So, ReElise. Less than 48 hours left on the ReElise Kickstarter. If you keep up with our podcast, if you join us on our streams, we discovered this maybe 3 weeks ago, and Stan Farina in particular was really excited about it because he thought it was super ambitious, and the biggest part was that spoke to him was it was the only game he ever found that said Christian video game. Because it's really something you don't see out there outside of educational title or edutainment. That does not roll off the tongue for me for some reason. Edutainment, education and entertainment in one. And usually we know how that is. It's more education and not so much on entertainment, And what is that? Like, why is it that a game, and it's an opportunity for the game industry as a whole, a game that teaches a lesson or lessons, a game that's heavy on story, that's focused on story, driven by the story. Why is it so often that the gameplay is just sucky? What's that about? So that's something that that as we're looking at this, we're like, yeah, why is that the case? So the creator behind this, Justin Fox, he's super passionate about it. He's a longtime gamer. He plays all kinds of games, and he's incorporated all kinds of things that he loves. This is truly a passion project for him, and this is the kind of stuff our network's about. Is finding passionate people and passion projects like this. So this is right up our alley, right? So it's a game that has hip-hop, retro, hand-drawn graphics, it's 2D, side-scrolling, You know, it's got that classic RPG vibe, JRPG mechanics. Then it's got Christian themes, and then a story with tons of feels. And I'm telling you, like, I played the demo, and if you watch the gameplay video, I was like, you know, trying to joke about it and laugh it up with the guys, but you know, it was heavy. That's how I kind of my kind of coping mechanism is kind of joking, but it's definitely very heavy, and it makes you think. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, and if that wasn't enough, the game is part of a movement that we hope just to execute upon, but it's not going to happen unless a community of gamers and Christians rallies behind it. And the whole hope there is that it'll open doors for more ambitious indie game developers and indie game projects. Because a lot of times, you know, you'll hear people say, oh, there isn't any innovation in the gaming industry. It's all the same. Well, why is that? Because we're not throwing our support behind the things that are different. So, let's go to the next slide here. We're going to look at the calling for us Christians. And I try not to get religious. You know, something I found in Twitch is if you start talking religion or politics, actually politics are fine, but religion, not so much, because it gets too heated. So I'm not going to spend too much time here. And I think there's also a greater call to action here, regardless of your belief. And again, you know, we respect all people of all backgrounds, all beliefs. You know, if you're agnostic or atheist, cool. But just bear with me. So here's the thing. In video games, you have so many subgenres and niches, or so to speak, right? But if you do a Google search, a Bing search, or even look on Instagram or Pinterest, or I don't know, whatever you're looking at, there aren't any Christian video games. When you look at the search results, the stuff that comes up has nothing to do with anything. It's really weird. There's only a few that come to mind. I know the biggest one lately was that Dragon Cancer, which they didn't really. I don't feel like their marketing, like all their messages, didn't really focus on it being a Christian video game. It's in there for sure. The whole notion of resurrection and redemption and all this stuff, and for sure. But I don't know if I'd call it a Christian video. Well, you know what? It has Christian themes, right? So that should be enough, right? Like and to me, a Christian theme is about life lessons. You know, good advice and guidance. Having principles and core values that lead you to hope, that lead you to redemption, that lead you to purpose in life. You know, that's something I think everybody can relate to. So that Dragon Cancer did really well on that end. Unfortunately, they made a few mistakes along the way. They didn't really support the community the way the community was supporting them. They were initially there was a lot of issues with people posting gameplay videos and streaming the game, and they kind of sent out a kind of nasty gram about it. And maybe they didn't mean it to come off that way. But the thing is, here's the thing, like their whole thought was people not being able to play the game was hurting their sale. That's what they felt like. Like it was preventing people from actually trying out themselves and experiencing it. And I totally understand. Like this is a labor of love, but you know, there's a lot of people that went behind it. I know mostly it was a family, a real family that worked on it due to their loss, and there's a lot of history there. And I don't want to get all into it, but you gotta support your community, and it's something that goes that cuts both ways. Now, some games that are developed by Christians, there's tons of them. Five Nights at Freddy's, Citizens of Earth, Heroes of I'm pretty sure this name on top. Issachar. You know, there's tons of them out there if you search for them. I think there's another one, Super Mechs. That's made by a Christian developer. I mean, there's tons of them, and there's even the Christian Game Developers Conference, which is the Christian version of the GDC. But it's still not representation. Like it's all kind of underground and hidden, as if people are ashamed of their faith, and that's an issue. After digging a lot though, I did find that Pico Interactive and the Wisdom Tree combined to do a Kickstarter called Arcade, and with that, it's an 8-bit system that came bundled with games like Noah's Ark, Exodus, Joshua, Bible Adventures, and a bunch of others. I can't remember them. But basically, what they did with these games is that they took popular games like, for some reason, I'm reminded of Bomberman and Wizard and Warriors and a few other games. They took those popular games and then just kind of gave them a Christian theme and some extra bells and whistles there. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. By extension, if you're a Christian, it doesn't mean you can't play, secular games. But certainly, I feel like if you're part of a group, a subculture, so to speak, or a smaller community, niche community, whatever you want to call it, if something rare comes out, I feel like everybody should throw the support behind it. It doesn't have to be monetary, but just, sharing it with people. Oop, I jumped ahead. My bad. So, and when you do search for Christian video game online, everything that comes up is either unrelated or negative. I saw this game. It was produced by a guy out in California, if I'm not mistaken, who also has a skating shoe company. And in his clothing line, whatever it is, his kind of tagline is, putting out clothes that brings glory to God. And I think you could bring glory to God or bring credit to your movement in everything you do. I believe in making a friend everywhere you go, and I think that the lines between business and personal should be blurred, because if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, it's not sustainable. Now, it depends also what kind of mindset you are. There's people that could be cutthroat and robotic and have no soul or authenticity, and that's fine for them. But if you're a real person and you like making those connections with people and making a difference, then that's the soul-sucking way to approach things. So, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. But, so this guy made a game that was basically a shooter, an FPS game, where you shoot LGBT people. Yeah, he didn't say it in such nice words either. Supposedly, it's supposed to be a satire. He wanted to make a very extreme statement to show how stupid bigotry is, and prejudice, and, all that stuff. And I don't know what the real deal is. Like, it's this thing. Intent is a thing that's really hard to measure. So it's easy to just see what someone does and judge them, not just their actions. I'm just going to say it's an unfortunate choice of words and probably a poor marketing stunt. It failed. It didn't get funded. And regardless of what his actual, goals were with that, the thing is, this is a Christian project that does not outwardly bring glory to God. It brings shame to the community of believers, and that's not a godly thing to be spreading a message of hate, even in jest. So, and this is from someone that uses some very risque humor and participates in it, because I think humor is one of those things that it's gonna cross lines, because we can't live off of knock-knock jokes. But there's even limits within that, right? So, things to think about. But here's the thing. So, I feel like whether you're a Christian or not, have the simple opportunities to seek out these things, these really niche things. And it's silly saying Christian anything is niche when we're such a massive community, but we're so sharded and segregated because all these denominations, and you got people that are doom and gloom, fire and brimstone types, and then you have people that are more liberal and progressive, and then you have everything in between, and none of us can agree. That we live under one God who's a God of love and forgiveness, and it's a big mess. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to go too deep on the religious side, but this is what's important here. We have simple opportunities every day. Let's say you like retro games, right? Let's say, just think about something really specific. Retro style game that's like Tropico, I don't know. Star Tropics, there you go, that's a good one. And then you look that up, and then you find some stuff like that, and it's something that you never even heard of. I feel it's an important thing. Like you find out it's an indie game company, and they're trying to get it out there. Even if they're not currently campaigning to fund it, like maybe it's just kind of on the back burner. Leave a comment on that site. Let people know there's an interest there, and could then bump that quality content, that rare find, further up in the search. People don't realize this, but the more you share and comment on stuff, it makes it go up on the search engine. But more so, it creates a trust vector. People are able to give things a chance because they see there's other engagement. Like, it's silly, but a lot of folks will not be the first to leave a comment. So if most people don't want to leave the first comment, that means someone has to be the one brave enough to do it, to open up the door to that conversation, and that's how things get pushed forward. The last thing is, I'm really disappointed, and I mean, we know the internet is caustic. We do a lot of marketing, a lot of promotional work, paid and unpaid, and one of the things I've always said is that Reddit is fantastic because it brings things back to the days of Usenet and when forums were really popular. But like Quora, it's an elitist community where if you're not super involved every day, I mean, it is an unrealistic expectation that you have to like spend several months or years just participating in existing conversations before you can even start your own thread, which is completely stupid. You know, that's a high barrier to entry. Do you want your community to die off? You know, because the content policy on Reddit and the individual guidance for each community, and then the volatile, fickle nature of the moderators in each subreddit, it's all madness. So it's such a high barrier to entry, and on top of that, you put something in that you really believe in, right? And the initial response is almost always caustic glibness. It's just toxic. And the thing about it is, the people that you expect to be less so are actually the worst. So I participated in a lot of the Christian subreddits, and it was just negativity and judgment and like just plain old nastiness. It's ugly. And so ironically, the agnostic and atheist threads were more inviting and more productive and constructive. And this is an opportunity for the Christian community, is that we are all so stuck on scripture, right? But we're not living the word. Love, forgiveness, acceptance, hope, compassion, generosity. You know? It's become this elitist club of snobs. And I'm almost ashamed to be part of it. Thank God I love the Lord, I love Jesus, but man, like it's just and you know, and that's the thing. That's the internet, right? The nastiest people live on the internet because in those communities, those people that are quick to respond and snap, that's where they spend most of their time. They probably don't have anything better to do. That's why they're doing that. So they're protective of it. Like, this is my territory, you know. And it's crazy. That toxicity is just insane. So why is that pushback? You know, I can speculate, I can postulate, whatever. You know, I have my theories, but I think mainly it's the fact that there's a lot of weird stigmas. Like, people feel that you shouldn't make a living doing what you love, or they feel like if you promote something and there's any kind of personal gain in it, that all of a sudden that discredits your claim. But then when you are transparent about that, then they say, oh, well, I'm going to throw out what you said anyway. So you can't win anyway. So this is what happens. Like, I posted on Reddit, and I was talking about how I find, I asked the question, does it feel like a lot of us Christians are becoming zombies or robotic in our everyday practice of the faith? We're just kind of going through the motions. Go to church, read the Bible, regurgitate verses, rinse and repeat. you know, and observe holy days. Rinse and repeat. I asked that question. I got some really good responses. We got some good conversation going. But of course, the trolls started planting seeds of doubt. Like, this seems like a marketing ploy, because I mentioned a good example. Because I went, from that, I said, when it comes to like really, going above and beyond, we miss even the simple opportunities, like leaving a comment or sharing something that does bring glory to God, right? Like ReElise. I can't just talk about ReElise. It's like, oh, this is a strange post. Seemed like a marketing ploy. Whoa, whoa. Like, come on, people. Life's too short to be paranoid like that. Like, seriously? It's crazy. So, I laugh about it, and I was not upset about it, but, I calmly respond to the person. Like, you're being condescending and aloof, so that's not helping your cause here. I'm like, man. Like, and the honest goodness truth is, we work with a lot of Christian creatives that do video games, music, art, books, whatever. And they constantly tell us that they won't market their thing as a Christian whatever because the Christian community is so caustic. And it's easy. And what happens is people, and this is a collective thing, this is a human truth, people rather make excuses that take action because it's easy to just pass the buck. Like, why am I going to help you because your game has too much violence in it? That's not biblically sound. Why am I going to help you because it seems like you have some monetary gain and there's a hidden agenda here, so I'm skeptical. No, you weren't planning to help me. What you're doing is you're going to keep pushing buttons until you get me frustrated, and then you could call me out and say, see, I was right. So that's what they do. So then they can justify the fact that they're being harsh and unscrupulous, just being jerks. So that's not just a Christian call to action. It's an opportunity for all of us, regardless of what your beliefs may be. But my thing is just let some people know that you matter to them, that you notice them. Because, one of the 5 love languages is words of affirmation. It's amazing how simple it is and how empowering it is to just let someone know, hey, I love what you're doing, keep it up. That's all I was asking for. Simple opportunity. I'm not talking about donating or helping a friend out financially. Those are beautiful things too. But a simple opportunity that takes you a few seconds, a few minutes of your time. But no. That's too much to ask for, and clearly there's a hidden agenda here. I'm selling crack cocaine to young kids around the world. Anyway, moving on. Gang Spotlight. Gang stands for GeekyAntics Network Global. We are a worldwide community, and we're going to highlight 2 people for you today. We got Gaming Death Podcast, one of the first podcasts to join our network, and one of the few flagship shows that we have right now. When I say flagship, I mean people that are consistently doing the show, are reliable in getting their stuff uploaded, and they're a core part of our efforts. So if you want to check them out, make sure you go to twitch.tv/gamingdeath, and they do their show every Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, right before Horseplay Live, which airs on the GeekyAntics Twitch channel. If you didn't know, wink, wink. Some of you are live right now, and you're watching that. So anyway, hello to everybody on YouTube. Villain Lily. She's originally the half, perhaps the major half, or the most popular half of the Link Wall channel. Lily has been getting heavily involved in the esports community. I think she was involved with some of the League of Legends stuff recently. And now she's been sponsored to appear at TwitchCon. She's got a lot of stuff going on. Super proud for her. Make sure you visit her and support her over at twitch.tv/Villain Lily. Of course, we got links down here to other stuff you may want to be a part of. GeekyAntics.net/podcast. Facebook.com/GeekyAntics. YouTube.com/GeekyAntics if you're not here already. And GeekyAntics.net/forums. Did I say it fast enough? Probably. Alright, did I hit next? Alright, so GeekyAntics 101. We talked last time about fail fast and fail often. FFFO. And we talked about how with that you learn something new every day. I talk about this concept and more with Chris Gannon over at the Give Me Death podcast. Make sure you check out the August 25th episode, and you could kind of get a feel more, you know, the kind of core values, the vision, the mission of the GeekyAntics Network. And it is a work in progress. You know, there's still a lot of opportunities, still a lot of things we got to work on. Systemizing things and being more consistent with stuff. But, you know, it's an ongoing effort, and we're excited about the things that are happening and that will come. But, you know, fail fast and fail often. The thing about that is you don't want to fear failure. Don't fear failure. But I think the more important thing there, too, is that most of us do not stumble or luck our way into the top. Alright? So when you're at the top, you get your 5 seconds of fame. A lot of people, you hear so often, people go broke as professional athletes, YouTube and Twitch professionals, you know, suddenly can't afford any bills. They go from top 10 to 0 out of nowhere. And that's because fame doesn't pay the bill, and fame is fleeting. The other problem is when you're at the top and you get lucky and stumble into that, you don't often approach things from a place of humility. So what happens is you're going to look at stuff and kind of go, well, I'm here because I'm good. Yay. You're not going to try to say, well, this is great, but I could be better here. Unless you're really mature and really look at the big picture. So you have to think, how can I replicate my success? How did I get here? Who got me here? Again, it comes from that place of humility. What do I know and what don't I know? And by the way, the things you know are always far less than what you don't know. That's always going to be the case, no matter how much of a genius you might be. That's just the truth, and that's a humbling thing. There's always things we can learn. There's always ways other people can help us, empower us, and enrich our lives. So when you fail fast, you fail often. Basically means just get stuff out, get stuff done, test, listen, monitor, get that feedback, and then iterate upon it. Don't overthink it. You know, everybody always thinks you have to have high production value, get everything perfect, and you just get it, and then get it out there. But by the time, when you do that, like, you know, right now with the release, and I see there's a lot of projects, you're talking about a road that's 3 to 5 years or maybe longer before they actually ship. And that's great because that shows dedication. But what happens is that the longer you take, the closer you get to shipping, the more burnt out you are, the less energy you have, and the less attentive you are to little details that you may have picked up otherwise. You know, so when you have that sense of urgency, and you fail fast, and you fail hard, chances are you're going to be able to have a lot more stuff to look at, to compare, lots more data points. You say, these things failed, these things worked. What do they have in common? What don't they? And you could use some basic science, you know, some basic logical, you know, deductive skills to figure out, hey, that didn't work, this did, you know? And that's basically why you want to fail fast and often. This is something we're kind of gonna keep kind of preaching because you know, fear cripples us. You know, we're afraid to be judged. We're afraid to, you know, be belittled, berated. You know, I took the risk, and you know, I have a personal account on Reddit, but I've been using the GeekyAntics name on there because I want to kind of spread the movement that we're doing on our side, and kind of bring more focus to the collective rather than just me as an internet personality. Though I'm not afraid to put myself out there. In fact, I sign my stuff, you know, Yogizilla when I post on the GeekyAntics account. And of course, people think that means I'm advertising, but you can't win with ignorant people. But you know, the whole thing is, for the longest, I've been a lurker on Reddit because I saw how caustic it is. It's I would say that Reddit is actually worse than 4chan. You know, maybe not in terms of subject matter, but but in terms of the way the community acts, it's just this elitist club, and it's like if you don't conform to what we believe is good content, then we don't want to hear it. We won't even give you a chance. We won't even we don't want to get to know you, and it's crazy. So many of the posts on Reddit are just shut down before any meaningful interaction happen. Even when there's lots of comments on it, they're like, "Oh, well, this has been archived. You can still read it, but it doesn't conform to our policy." Blah blah blah. It's crazy. But you know what? Something just gotta put yourself out there, take a risk, because you know what? In our minds, we often make conclusions, but we can never be 100% sure unless we try it ourselves. Now, that said, there's something to be said about getting advice from people that have been down that road. But ultimately, follow your gut. Know why you're doing something. Kind of, figure that out so you have a clear direction. But just take the dive. Because, you got to be in it to win it. If you're not, if you're not in it, you're not going to win for sure. So just not doing anything is not an option. You can't win it if you're not doing anything. So that's really what you got to look at. Failing is better than doing nothing. Cause at least you're learning. So some brilliant people say, I never failed in my life. I've just learned a lot of good lessons. That's a good way to look at it. But let's be honest, you're still failing. It's just take away the stank from the word failure, and then it transforms it. It's something that creates strength, something that makes you wiser, and there's nothing wrong with that. Even if a little bit of fear is good. Just don't let it dominate you. Everything in moderation, everything balanced, yin and yang. So, our goal is we keep talking about GeekyAntics, and this section we're gonna talk a lot about marketing stuff, and it's gonna be kind of inspirational and pepped up, and maybe kumbaya-ish, But we're gonna try to give you some tactics, some strategies, some insights to kind of help you build your brand, and also understand what we're doing with our network. And our goal basically is simple: lighten the individual loads and make marketing and content creation more sustainable. Basically, if everybody works together and does the little things collectively, we could do big things. Actually, this is the premise of a lot of models. If you read The Tipping Point, which is highly recommended, it's one of those books that's up there with like The Secret, or How to Influence People and Make Friends. What is it? How to Win Friends and Influence People. I forget the title. Dale Carnegie, right? Carnegie. Oh my God, I can't even think right now. Dale Carnegie. Yeah. There's the 7 Principles of Highly Effective People. There's a lot of books like that, but The Tipping Point is a huge one. I don't even brain farting right now. It's been a long day. But The Tipping Point is basically a very simple premise. It's all up. It talks about, and if you look at any marketplace, any segment, any sector, any market, any community, any venture, any movement, the tipping point is when the little things over time culminate, and then there's a paradigm shift. Right? Basically, critical mass is achieved, and with that, that's a great thing. But things that go up don't stay up, so things eventually go down. So you get a little plateau, and then it goes back down, and then in order to change and things, kind of like with Nintendo with the Wii, they had a boom, and then they didn't do anything with it because the Wii U was a terrible follow-up. But anyway, that's a rant for another time. So the whole tipping point it talks about that. Over time, those little things eventually lead to big things. But everybody looks at these big opportunities, these big projects, these huge ideas, and they're not sustainable, so they never really get to finish them. They never really execute on them properly. The little things over time that lead to big things. So simple. So our kind of inspirational thing to you is we can change the playing field together, and it doesn't take much. You may have a day job, like a lot of people do, but it doesn't mean you can't help out, and it's something that is gonna create mutually beneficial scenarios. Yeah, that's the thing. People. That's another stigma. People look at self-promotion or any kind of business interest as dirty. You know, well, why shouldn't you make a living doing what you love? If you could do it, why wouldn't you? So you could be happy. I mean, think about all the people you run into that are miserable in a job because it's a job they have just to pay the bills. You know, like servers, waitresses and waiters. I bless their hearts because I feel for them. There's a lot of cheap people in the world, and why are people eating out in a restaurant, not a fast food place, in a restaurant, and not bringing enough money to tip? Because I guess it's either you are broke and barely have enough to pay for that meal, or you're cheap. Either way, shame on you for not using financial sense. I mean, 10-50% is the minimum. Zero is nothing. People tipping $1 on $100 bill, $10 on a $300 bill at Red Lobster. What? What? You don't need to know. You don't need to know how to do math to realize that doesn't make sense. And what people don't realize now is that the food service industry has got it worse. Now those waiters have to pay taxes regardless of what the tips they get. So they're basically paying for your meal. And then these people are bringing home. I've seen checks for a 70-hour work week, $12. $12. $20. $3. That's a shame. That is a crying shame. So, and I try to be hopeful. I try to be positive and put a positive spin on everything. But there are times when I look at stuff like this, how negative people are, how cheap they're, how selfish we are. And I'm like, man, I'm not saying I'm perfect. But, like, humanity's going to crap. And, there's things I need to work on myself. Believe me, I'm not being aloof. I'm not saying I'm perfect. But at least I'm aware of these opportunities, I won't go out if I don't have money to really spend. Because I know people will rely on those tips. I'm not going to go to a bar and drink one beer and nurse it. And then give the guy 50 cents. The bar or the waitress 50 cents. Like, come on. That's a seat to go to someone who can spend more money. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much thought into it. Maybe I'm too sensitive, too considerate. Is this a thing? Who knows? Fantasy football, guys. We get a little less serious, a little more fun. I was gonna kind of talk about personal draft reports and all this stuff, but of course Obi's not here because he's a flake and I love him to death. But I'm not gonna have these conversations myself. But I do want to say in our TSC league on NFL.com. My rating right now it says I have the third best team, and I did some risky stuff. I did snag Antonio Brown, which is a top 10 fantasy player, I would say. And that actually was my first round pick. I know some people are like, not a running back. That's the thing about it. Like with running backs, yeah, they're still the workhorses of the. Well, here's the thing. I don't believe they're the workhorses of the league anymore. I think the league has shifted more towards passing. I also feel like in the past couple of seasons, my running backs have had a lot of injury problems, and then since I focused on running backs, I had really crappy wide receivers that couldn't make up the slack. Now the PPR league is different, so it's not so bad there. But standard scoring, it's a different story. But here's the thing. Am I still streaming? Okay, yeah, I'm good. Let me take a little swig here. So the thing to really look at, though, the proper way to look at it is how much depth there is at that position. So really, in running backs, you have maybe 8 to 10 players that are really worth picking up. And after that, there's a severe drop-off. With wide receivers, there's a lot more depth, right? and there's teams that are doing the 3 wide receiver, and just getting more receivers out in the field kind of plays a lot more passing, the aerial attack. So anyway, what that says though is you want to try to snag the best talent at a position, particularly if you have to play multiple people in that position. So most leagues are 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs. There's more depth in the wide receivers, so you could draft that a little later, and there should be some value there by the time you swing it back around to you. So that's kind of the whole idea, and I see why people say draft running backs first. I still don't, I'm not a professional, but I still feel like if you have a really good wide receiver pickup, you can pick up first round. Yeah, sure, go for it. If your last pick is actually ideal because you could pick 2 players in a row. And then that changes your drafting strategy completely. So, something to think about there. I also find, like I said, running backs have kind of hurt me a lot because it depends on the team they're on. Some teams, they pass more no matter what. So, a lot of teams will pass when they're playing from behind. So if they're in a lot of third down situations and they have a medium or long, distance to go, they're going to pass. So you look at these kind of trends, that it impacts how often players are used in certain positions. So, and that kind of, in a long, third and long situation, you're probably going to pass the ball. That's just the kind of how it works out. Again, and rushers, they tend to get hurt more, I find, because they're freaking taking a lot more hits. They're running through the defense and going into those pockets to try to get through. And sometimes the blockers aren't that crazy. They aren't that effective. Another thing too is passers are getting a lot more free time, and the quarterbacks are getting better looks and throwing the ball better because the offensive line is holding for longer. So they have all the extra time to really carefully choose their targets and get that perfect play time and again. So a lot of things in play. So some people are recommending. There's a lot of people I've heard talking about it. A lot of fantasy pros. They're talking about using a tier system, and that's something that you may not know that you may already use it though. So basically, it's you look at the points in any position where there's a severe drop-offs in the points. My cat's trying to sneak up on me. So, basically, let's say at the top 5 positions, did I keep it up? No, I closed out my fantasy stuff. I did have it up though. But next time maybe we'll do a little fantasy football mini show. We'll see. But it's very abstract. You're looking at quarterbacks, and top 10 quarterbacks all have over 200 points for last season. Let's just say that. But then, when you go down to, let's say number 15, it's you see that guy has 150, and it's it's basically a 50-point drop off. Let's say that would be a good demarcation point for the tier. Because there's a huge drop. Another thing people go by is ADP, the average draft pick. The thing about ADP is that it goes by draft order, not round order. So basically, it tells you this player is on average the 40th overall pick or the first overall pick, which is great, but the deeper you go into those rankings, the harder it is to really kind of figure out what the player's true value is. Because let's say a 30th pick in a deep league, let's say a 10 to 12 team league, right? That's a higher value player than if you're talking about a 30th pick in a small league. Because you still have more chances to probably pick him up, scoop him up later. See what I'm saying? And you can one way to just kind of simply do that is take the ADP and divide it by the number of rounds, just to get a rough estimate for how many how many picks you could go before you try to scoop up that player. So let's say it's the 30th overall pick, and you have 6 teams like we do on our TSC league. That's basically about 5 rounds you could go before you really have to look at him. Now you can say -1. So 4 rounds before you start paying attention to how that player is doing, how long they stay there. And you probably want to have a watch list, typed out or in front of you on another monitor or something, So there's a lot of interesting things, like, you don't have to be into fantasy football or football period to really kind of appreciate like the math and the statistics of it. It's really nerdy if you think about it. That's just, that's what I like about it. And I like sports, but I'm not like super into them. As some people are. Like, I like these teams are paying my bills. If they were, maybe it'd be a little different story. So I want to say too, there's some players that I think are a bit overrated, perhaps poisonous. One of them I want to say is Des Bryant. Des Bryant has burnt me in the past. I'm still not really impressed with his performance. I think he's an excellent player. I think I had high hopes for him, when he came in as a rookie, but they limited his workload. Now they gave him more workload, and he's, being consistently targeted. But, I love Texas. I tell you, I love Texas. I would probably move out there because I know a lot of people out there. But Texas, man, Dallas Cowboys, man, I don't trust their offense at all. I mean, Tony Romo might be very well be a great quarterback, but I just feel like I don't really trust any of their players fantasy football wise. I just don't. And I kind of have the same feeling about New Orleans, sorry, because but not because they're not a great team, but because they spread the ball around. So New Orleans players, they're you never know which one's gonna hit because you never know who's gonna be open and who's gonna have the most productivity, most workload. Because Drew Brees, he does spread the ball around a lot. So the only person I would recommend from that team for sure is Drew Brees. Mark Ingram, I know people are loving on him, but again, I don't know. It's hard to say because Mark Ingram is another one that's a talented player that has burnt me a lot. But Mark Ingram is still probably better than most of the running backs you'll find out there, so sure. All right. Cam Newton, he's at number 1 on pretty much all the power rankings, all the player rankings. And he definitely is a top 10 fantasy player. But you gotta be careful picking him up as your first pick, because I feel like at quarterback, and this goes the contrary to what I've done in the past, because quarterbacks used to be one of my early picks, but really, there's so much depth in a quarterback position now, and so little differentiation that picking up a Cam Newton at first, second, or even third pick, not worth it when there's so many great running backs and receivers to get out there. So anything's better than picking up quarterbacks early on. And another thing is definitely pick up kicker last. And don't get a backup for your kicker. You could get that off the waiver wire. Come on now. Leave that slot for pick up more sleepers, more talent. So you may want a backup for your defense. That might be worth it if you have some good special teams bonuses and whatnot. And it's a DST and not just a defense. Some people separate them. So we might be starting. Oh yeah, and Jamal Charles. I didn't want to talk about him. That's another player that I think is talented, but use at your own risk because he's had some off seasons and then he's had some great seasons. And again, it all depends. Are they being targeted? Are they being covered? Are they healthy? Another thing to think about. And there's other players too. Rob Gronkowski seems great, but his price is too high. I was one of the few people that picked him up when no one was really talking about him, and then he ended up being an explosive player, and it was awesome. And now his value is too high. And TE is another one of those positions. You can only field one tight end in most places. You wouldn't want to put a tight end at flex. There's usually better options. And you know, the tight ends, I think there's less depth there, but still the value still isn't high enough. It's just too much of a wild card. So if you could pick up Rob Gronkowski as a round 5 or 6, then yeah. But I don't know, putting a tight end early on, that's a tough sell to me. Then again, you know, I don't know. You have maybe 5 really good tight ends right now. And then there's some serviceable ones. Like Antonio Gates, I think might make a comeback because, you know, it's a contract year. Apparently, he just renewed it, and he's gonna be playing real serious. You know, it's really interesting. Like he's one of the older players, and the fact that he's gonna make a push and it looks like he's gonna keep playing a few more years, that gets me excited. Hopefully, he doesn't stub his toe. I also think the Chargers, San Diego Chargers, and Arizona Cardinals are gonna surprise us a lot this year. I just have a feeling there's a lot of good things going on there. You know, the Cleveland Browns might surprise us a little bit. There might be some upsets there. You know what I haven't heard much about? The Washington Redskins. They've kind of fallen off. Huh. There's some homework to do there. I might have to peep some stuff, do some more homework. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, come join us. We might start another league. We usually run at least 2 leagues each year on Yahoo. And now we have another one on NFL, which is I'm doing with Obi and crew, the TSC crew. So we might do another league. If you're interested, let me know. I'm at Yogizilla on Twitter. And then, of course, you could write us on our Facebook page, too, if it's easier for you. One last thing I want to talk about is interesting notion here. When you do a trade, 2-for-1 trade, you're trading the 2 and the other person's giving you the 1. That may seem like a bad trade, but that's what I call a monopoly trade. And it's you have to think about it. You have to put yourself at risk to get the trade through. You have to think about your positional advantage. So if you really need a solid running back, because your passing game is super strong, but your rushing game sucks, that's the time to trade. You might have a lot of depth in your passing game, but I think you also have to think about how much value you're giving that person, like how much better they're gonna make their team. Obviously, you're gonna give them something they need, so it might give them some trading chips. That's a risk you probably have to take, really. But the other thing to think about is it's gonna free up a slot on your team, and if you before you make a trade, check that waiver wire, see what's available, try to get that trade through with the availabilities on the waiver wire in mind. And hopefully your league has a good system where all the waiver wire transactions are queued up and processed on one day rather than going through immediately or whatever. There's different stipulations for that, but if you could do that, you might be high up on the waiver wire priority list. And if you are high on the waiver, then you could pick up that player and more than likely be guaranteed for it, unless everybody's going for the same player because they heard it on ESPN or something. Who knows? So, something to think about there. And I heard that in a few podcasts, including the Fantasy Football. That's a good one. And Fantasy Football Guys. Speaking of Fantasy Football Guys, they have a thing called a Magic Formula, which breaks down the math behind determining the value between different positions. Really interesting stuff. So they basically help you figure out the drop-off in talent and value, and how to just prioritize your draft order, your draft rankings. If you want to do a mock draft, you go to the draft simulator, and a lot of places. There's one that I like at draftwizard.fantasypros.com. Fantasy Pros also has a nice player rankings that I like. Of course, you can use NFL.com or Yahoo's fantasy football rankings, or ESPN or RotoWire. There's a lot of great things out there. The big thing is injury reports. So, you get injury reports over at NFL.com/injuries. You would think that's the fastest, but actually the fastest is on Twitter. Twitter, and then Roto World kind of retweets their stuff and reshares their stuff. So if you want that injured roster kind of update, IR updates, that's where you want to go, because there's like a, 90 minute rule. You have to declare players whether they can play or not 90 seconds before the game starts. Here's the other interesting thing. This season, a lot of people don't realize this, but they're getting rid of the P designation, the probable designation. So that means players are going to be questionable. That's going to be like the lowest level one. Doubtful. That means more than likely are not going to play. That was the thing. Oh, out. And yeah, those are it, right? And I guess IR is general designation, injured reserve. Yeah. So basically, they're dropping the probable thing, because they found with probable, all it really meant is that they were a little dinged up, but they were definitely going to play. So people saw the P and just got excited. And not really an injury designation if they're going to play the game 99% of the time. So questionable is going to incorporate what P used to be and also what questionable used to mean. It's going to throw a lot of people off, so I think this is going to change things up big time. Alright, so we're about to wrap up here. We're approaching the hour mark very quickly. Titanfall 2, we did some community gaming, and I'm really excited to say that we outscored our friends on All Games, on the All Games Network, and on HGP, Horrible Gamers Podcast, so that was kind of cool. I think our net worth was 120 or something like that, so exciting. A lot of people were saying that Titanfall 2 was worse than the first. I loved it. The polish is there. It performs really well. There's a lot of great things they did there. The grappling hook is really fun. The only thing I can really say, I don't like how the map, the level design used to be better in the first one. I felt like they were more intricate designs. But this looks better, so the verticality is what's missing. There's a lot of horizontal play, and the grappling hook gives you a little bit more verticality. But I feel like it feels like the maps are flatter than what they used to be, for better or worse. As far as the pacing, I still think it's very fast paced. The first is faster, but not by as much as people would like to think. Hearthstone, the last wing is this week. Yeah, this Thursday. What is the Opera Wing? Yeah, I think the Opera Wing. No, Opera Wing just dropped. What's the last wing? I don't even know. It was Menagerie, whatever the first one was, Menagerie and Opera. I can't even think anymore. My memory is terrible. But overall, I think the card design's been easy, but I've enjoyed it. What I will say is I see zoo decks becoming nastier than ever. And hunters are about to take over again. And I've already seen some nasty hunter decks, so yeah. Hunter fell off for me for a while, but it might be time to make a new hunter deck. And my priest, man. I don't know, this Purify has some good uses, but it's not as sexy as the other plays. I don't know. Silence your own minion and then draw a card. Okay, sure. But how many minions have negative effects that you don't want to be triggered? There's that one that lets your opponent draw a card when it dies. It's a 3-drop 4/4, right? I guess there's ways you can use it. I've seen people use it in some pretty clever ways, but like they used it on that 7/7 that can only attack when it's the only minion on your field. That's pretty dope. And then you could cycle that. Like if you just run a big boy deck, run Resurrect. I might have to mess around with my priest deck, cause you just run big boy, so when you resurrect, you're just getting these huge creatures out. Man, you can do some sweet stuff there. So yeah, I played some Battlefield 4 recently, in a few days actually, a couple times, and I gotta say, it's still tons of fun. So if anybody's still playing, hit me up on Xbox. I'd like to play that. My gamer tag is Yogizilla, and Obi, who's not here, is Obi1X2. And what else do we have here? Of course, the usual stuff. Please comment on our Facebook page and blog. Share, like, share, comment, subscribe. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Like, share, comment, subscribe. A lot of people hate hearing that. But, you know, we gotta ask. Because people are so bitter about it. Like, oh, he promotes so much, man. That's me to do stuff. It's like, would that cost you anything? But, you know, if everybody did that little bit, we'd be able to make an honest living, you know, doing what we love. So why wouldn't you help someone do that, you know? If a friend asks you, hey, I need $10, and then I'll be able to start the most awesome business ever. Sure. What, you gonna say no? $10. That's probably not a very good example of it, but anyway. And don't forget, you gotta be in it to win it. Don't give up. Don't let people discourage you, especially the trolls and the negative Nelly. There's plenty of them out there, regardless of circle of life you're in, walk of life you're around. They're out there. They're unavoidable. Just do what I do. I just laugh. People say that people construe that as me being aloof or arrogant or condescending. Just say, no, you're being petty. You're being nasty. I'm not saying that you are these things, but your actions are this, and I can only judge your actions. This is how you're acting. It's unproductive, and I don't have time for it. That's the point I'm at. You know, maybe you're an awesome person, but you're, you know, being really mean-spirited and unproductive. You're not helping me out. You're lazy. Whatever it is, you know, you get at a certain point. You have to realize the 80-20 rule applies to a lot of things. Spend 80% of the time with 20% of the people that actually give a crap. That's what I say. Because the other people are just gonna waste your time and just create more heartache. Don't forget, you know, we love you guys. Keep it up. Hashtag again. Keep the movement going. New feeds coming, by the way. GeekyAntics Forecast Podcast. And leave us voicemail and text messages at 646-801-2149. I'm Yogizilla. Visit us at GeekyAntics.net. We're at GeekyAntics on Facebook. And I'm out. Peace. Oh, wait a minute. Don't forget, ReElise.com. Get that Kickstarter supported. We need help for that. I really want to help us create an underdog story for that. How excited would that be if we got people to get off their butts and be part of something bigger than themselves? Oh, we can make it happen, man. I still believe in people. Even if I lose hope, I still want to believe. I still need to believe that we could do it. Unite. Geeks unite. Hashtag Geeks unite. Hashtag Gamers unite. Make a difference. It's little things. Just the little things. All right. I'm out. Peace.